I found out about Gainax's final closure the way most of us get news these days. Scrolling through my phone late at night when I should have been sleeping. December the 10th, 2025. The headline hit different than when they first filed for bankruptcy back in May. This time, it was final. Hideaki Anno himself had confirmed it after 42 years. Studio Gainax had completed its bankruptcy proceedings and ceased to exist as a corporate entity. Just like that, one of anime's most influential studios was gone. Not struggling, not restructuring, gone. The studio that gave us Evangelion, that defined what anime could be for an entire generation, had officially closed its doors forever. And here I was preparing my 12 days of anime reviews, suddenly feeling compelled to write something else first. So this won't be one of my best edited videos, but hopefully you guys understand the everlasting impact that Gainax has had over the industry in over 4 decades. So I think we should start all the way at the very beginning. Gainax started the way that all the best creative disasters do, with a bunch of nerds who love something too much to be sensible about it. Back in 1984, a group of university students and amateur filmmakers decided they could make anime better than what they were seeing. They had no money, no real business plan, just an overwhelming belief that animation could be more than it was. These were the same folks who made the legendary Daikon 3 and 4 opening animations, which were amateur works that showed more creativity and passion in 8 minutes than most professional studios managed an entire series. When they officially formed Gainax in December of 1984, they weren't thinking about quarterly profits or sustainable business models. They were thinking about making the coolest stuff imaginable. Their early years were marked by that beautiful chaos that happens when talented people have more ambition than sense. Royal Space Force The Wings of Oneames, their first feature film, nearly bankrupted them before they even got properly started, but it also announced to the world that this wasn't just another animation studio. This was a group of creators who would pour everything into their work. Budget constraints, market considerations, and common sense be damned. They followed up with Gunbuster, condensing epic space opera into 6 OVA episodes that somehow felt bigger than most 50-episode series. Then came Nadia, The Secret of Blue Water, their first TV series, which showed they could work within the constraints of television while still maintaining that distinctive Gainax energy. But nothing could have prepared the anime world for what came next in 1995, Neon Genesis Evangelion. The anime that didn't just change Gainax, it changed anime itself. Here was a mecha show that was really about depression, abandonment, and the desperate need for human connection. Anno poured his own mental struggles into the work, creating something so personal it felt universal. The production was famously troubled, the budget ran out, and the final episodes became abstract psychological breakdowns instead of traditional action climaxes. And somehow, maybe because of all that messiness rather than despite it, Evangelion became a phenomenon. It redefined what anime could explore thematically, how it could portray internal struggles, and prove that audiences were hungry for complexity. The post-Eva years should have been Gainax's golden age. They had the reputation, the resources, and the talent to do anything. And for a while, they delivered. FLCL turned adolescent confusion into 6 episodes of controlled chaos that still feels fresh 20 years later. Gurren Lagann took the super robot genre and pushed it so far past its limits that it broke through into pure inspirational insanity. These weren't just good shows, they were statements about what animation could achieve when freed from conventional restraints. Each new Gainax production felt like an event, a promise that you were about to see something you'd never seen before. But success has a way of complicating things, especially in a studio built on creative chaos. The very passion and lack of business sense that made Gainax special also planted the seeds of its destruction. Financial mismanagement became chronic, The studio's leadership made increasingly questionable decisions, from failed business ventures to rights disputes. The same people who could imagine drilling robots the size of galaxies couldn't figure out basic accounting. By the late 2000s, the cracks were showing. Key creators started leaving to form their own studios, taking their vision and talent with them. The exodus was slow at first, then became a flood. Anno left to form Studio Khara, taking Evangelion with him. Hiroyuki Amashi and much of the Gurren Lagann team departed to create Studio Trigger. Other talents scattered to different studios, each taking a piece of Gainax's creative DNA with them. What remained was increasingly just a shell, a company that owned some valuable properties but had lost the spark that created them. The Gainax of the 2010s felt like a ghost of its former self, occasionally releasing something that reminded you of past glories but never quite capturing that old magic. The financial situation spiraled from bad to worse. By 2012, according to later statements, serious mismanagement had begun. Debts piled up, rights to their most valuable properties were sold off or transferred under questionable circumstances. The studio that once defined creative ambition was reduced to fighting legal battles and trying to monetize nostalgia. When news broke in 2024 that they'd filed for bankruptcy, it felt less like a shock and more like an overdue mercy. The Gainax we loved had been gone for years. This was just making it official. What makes this dissolution particularly bitter is how unnecessary it feels. This wasn't a studio killed by changing market conditions or audience tastes. Gainax died from self-inflicted wounds, from a fundamental inability to balance creative passion with business reality. The very traits that made them revolutionary, the willingness to risk everything on a vision, the rejection of conventional wisdom, the belief that art mattered more than profit, also made them unsustainable. They burned bright and burned out, leaving others to carry on their legacy in more stable forms. But maybe that's the most Gainax ending possible. They were never meant to last forever, were they? They were meant to explode, to scatter their creative seeds across the industry. Look at anime today and you see Gainax's influence everywhere. Trigger carries on their spirit of ambitious insanity. Khara continues to push Evangelion into new territories. Studios like Cloverworks and A1 Pictures employ former Gainax staff who bring that distinctive energy to new projects. The studio died, but its DNA lives on, mutated and evolved, but still recognizable. The real tragedy isn't that Gainax closed, it's what they represented that we've lost. They came from an era when a bunch of passionate amateurs could decide to make professional anime and actually pull it off. When studios could take massive creative risks because they didn't know any better. When financial disaster was an acceptable price for artistic achievement. Today's anime industry, for all its technical sophistication and global reach, feels more calculated, more risk-averse. We get plenty of good shows, even great ones, but how many feel genuinely dangerous? How many make you wonder if the creators have completely lost their minds in the best possible way? I keep thinking about what Gainax meant to those of us who grew up with their work. They taught us that anime could be personal, that it could be difficult, that it could demand more from its audience than passive consumption. They showed us that animation wasn't just for kids or nostalgic adults, but could be a medium for exploring the deepest parts of human experience. Watching a Gainax show at its best felt like being let in on a secret that this medium you loved was capable of so much more than you could ever imagine. Their influence extends beyond just the shows they made. Gainax changed how we talk about anime, how we analyze it, what we expect from it. They proved that anime could support the same level of critical analysis as literature or film. They created works that demanded interpretation, that rewarded rewatching, that revealed new layers with each viewing. In doing so, they helped create the modern anime fandom, one that dissects symbolism, argues about meanings, and treats animation as a serious art form worthy of serious discussion. As I write this tribute, I'm struck by how fitting it is that Gainax's end comes just as I'm preparing to launch my 12 days of anime reviews. There's something poetic about commemorating their legacy while celebrating the medium they helped transform. Every ambitious anime that takes risks, every studio that puts vision before profit, every creator who pours their soul into their work, they are all following the path Gainax blazed. The studio is gone, but the belief that animation can be more, must be more, lives on. So here's to Studio Gainax, the beautiful disaster, the glorious failure, the revolutionary mess that changed everything. They showed us what was possible when creators cared more about their art than their survival. They gave us works that defined generations and inspired countless others to pick up the torch. They burned out exactly as they lived, dramatically, chaotically, and impossible to ignore.